let's get started with our opening fireside. We're talking redefining cross-border payments, how technology is powering financial inclusion. We're joined by Michelle Hajjar, cross-border payments and Fintech innovation leader. A warm welcome for Michelle, please. Good morning, Michelle. Thank you so much for kicking things off for us this morning. And this subject ties in perfectly with a bit of my introduction there, and that is the human aspect of fintech, which is something I often go to because every transfer, every cross-border payment normally has a human story attached to it. So let's start with a little bit of history. And historically, for you, what have been the hardest challenges, the stubborn challenges when it comes to solving cross-border payments?
As per my experience and how I've seen it, historically, the hardest challenge that we're trying to solve is trust. And customers need to trust that their money is reaching their receivers. So having the right FX and having the right fees shown to the customer, this is the first thing. And then another point is making sure that the payments are going to be received on time for the receiver. So this is the simplest way of saying things. So basically, trust is at the heart of it, and this is what we're trying to solve historically.
I'm sure we'll come back to the matter of trust in just a second. Let's look at technical developments and what you've seen when it comes to cross-border payment technology developments. Through your career, how have you seen that marketplace change and develop and improve?
Yes, of course. So I will give you some stats around technology. So basically, as I said it, as the most simplest way, we need to have trust, but now because we want to be able to give that trust to customers. So as per McKinsey in 2024, 70% of real-time payments corridor are API driven. So basically, we want to try with regulation, with API and with AI to make sure that money is being received on time, but also there's no fraudulence. So technology is trying to detect this to make sure that, with KYCs and the right partners on the receive side, payments are being received on time and also to the right receivers. So tech has a big part in that, and now with AI, we can predict if there's anomalies within the payments. So making sure that tech is actually helping the customer, helping the consumer, and also the whole fintech and payments across borders and players there to make sure that the money is saved.
And are you seeing personally a very rapid development in that technology?
Yeah. Yes, there is a very rapid development, and this is what will, I think now and like for the next 5 years, we will see things moving and changing very fast. AI and AI agentics will be taking orders from customers, making I would predict, as we saw in the news, OpenAI and Stripe, for instance, have now embedded payments. So there will be a lot of changes going forward within the next 5 years. But we need to make sure that as we have more KYC and AI driven to detect, also we will have a lot of fraudulences and also a lot of attacks. So making sure to have that balance in payments.
Now, when we're talking about cross-border payments, the expression underserved and underrepresented communities always comes up. It's an expression that's in every single announcement, every single press release. But it's easier said than done. Yep. If you're looking for the underrepresented, the people who don't have the banking access, by their very nature, they're quite difficult to find. It's easier said than done. From your experience, how do you go about proactively finding those groups so they can be helped and supported?
Yes, of course. Again, 1.4 billion persons do not have access to mobiles, whether in Africa or in the rural areas. And then 70% of them in Africa, for instance, use mobile wallets to pay their fees, to pay their bills, I mean, as you said at the beginning, your nieces and nephews do not have a bank. So you need to really be on the receiver side to understand who are you trying to send to, and with the globalization and people have moved a lot, and communities, what are they trying to solve, what are they trying to help? So you need to think about those cycles. When do they send? Do they send during Christmas or like the Ramadan or other festivities, but also how do we get to them? So having the right product, having the right language, having the right product on the receive side. Do they like to receive in wallets, or do they like to have their money get to their houses? So in China, for instance, they want to have them direct to their housing. So this is how you reach those communities and really understand communities. How do they want to how do they want to receive the money? So, and then you work from there.
Very much starting with that customer. Trust was where we started in this conversation, and how you ensure security and trust whilst making things simple. That is such a balance, and I'm sure it's something we'll talk about on numerous occasions over the next few days. How do you get that balance right between security and trust with simplicity? That's an age-old question. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So you need to have trust and put all the layers in order to make sure that regulatory is there and the customer is receiving their money on time with the right fees, as you have mentioned, but also be frictionless. So kind of being the most natural way. So this is kind of a challenge, and also one of the problems that we want to solve exactly. So I think they work hand in hand. If you have the right regulation, which also working with different companies, working with each other. For instance, Western Union works with M-Pesa on the wallet side, but also with regulation. So making sure that customer will receive their money and in the most, like with the best user experience. So not having friction is very important.
That relationship between different tech providers is something I want to go into in just a second. So I'll just put a pin in that for a second. But you're talking there about the frictionless and about the technology. I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here because this is something I find fascinating. How much work goes into creating that frictionless experience, that user experience? From your experience, how much work goes into it, and where are the successes found?
I think as technology is moving and as technology is changing, I think embedded finance will be, something that we're going to be experiencing, all of us. So we don't need to go into an app, actually have the senders, like having, let's say, if I'm searching online, then I can send directly through any, whatever is open in front of me. And then also talking about like frictionless, for instance, being able to have AI agentics to notify me whenever FX is at the right, or the fees is where, let's say I would say, okay, Neil, I want Neil to receive $400 this week. Send him the money when the fees and FX are at the best rate, and having that automated for me where I don't have to go myself and so I would give him the order or the prompt and then they would do it. So this kind of frictionless and trust, where I trust that you will get their money at the right price at the right time, and all that goes in with like the user experience at the end of the day. And this is where the kind of competition is happening. What is the best experience we want to give to our customers?
I do like where that story's going, by the way, so we could have carried on. But let's look at more future trends. You're talking there about embedded finance. What other future trends are you thinking we'll see over the next 5 years?
As I mentioned, embedded finance, I think AI agentics, giving orders. I also think working different technologies working together, so it's not anymore one player working against the other, but also, how do I leverage different rails? I'm not going to go a lot into stable coins, but stable coins is something that also that we will see, where you will have less rails no fees, and then just you need to have the right partners on the receiver side, and also for the consumer to be able to also, be open to having stable coins. Not all communities accept that. So embedded finance, AI, agentics, more regulation. Obviously, like we're going to have more attacks because AI is, it can be used in the wrong way, but also being able to secure, and be able to stop any misfunction, to try to highlight it.
And I know when we were prepping for this session, there was a wonderful expression I think you used was, over the last few years, we've been building the rails, and now we're building the brains. And I love that expression. That's such a nice way of phrasing where
the last 10 years were fintech rails, and now we're going to be fintech, brains.
Yes, absolutely. That's a better version of it. You mentioned competition a moment ago, because there is so much competition within not just fintech, but within cross-border technology. How do you see those relationships? Is it something that's pushing technological advancement? How do you perceive that?
I don't think as different players trying to take the market share from each other. I see them as like an open kind of expanding to one another. It's actually beneficial for the consumer, but also for the players, cross-border players. So again, as I said, Western Union, for instance, would partner with Orange Money or M-Pesa wallet, instead of having like a closed system where only one sender will be receiver, like, the wallet in Orange Money in France will be sending to Orange Money. They will be partnering with different players from the sender side. So one, they will have a bigger pool of people sending to, and then on the receiver side, they will be the experts in markets. So I think each one will have an expertise that will layer on each other, and therefore they will benefit from each other, and the customer will be the happiest. So kind of working together in order to have the best solution for the customer.
From your experience, though, how do you get those partnerships right? Because that, as you say, is absolutely crucial in making that kind of progression. Different organisations have different priorities. How do you get that partnership right for the benefit of both the organisation and the customer on the end of the product?
Again, you need to understand, it's a very good question, Anil. You need to understand the customer, you need to understand what do they want, how do they want to receive. And there are players that are doing it the right way on a localized and a regional side. So for instance, in sub-Saharan Africa, you have the players in Africa that are, where customers have downloaded the app or they use the wallet all the time on their phone. So a big player in the Western side would have the knowledge to send them and would have the infrastructure, but would not have the localized knowledge. So kind of prioritizing, like, which corridor do I want to tap into, which community do I want to have as a customer, and then how do I serve that customer, and take it from there.
There's plenty more I still want to talk about, but what I would like to do is go to the room to see if there's any particular questions from the room at all, if there's any hands. We do at the front. And this is where I go. It's always nice when the first question's at the front of the room. I don't have to go wandering off too much.
Thank you very much. Michelle, that was a beautiful vision in terms of how you're building out the superhighway of cross-border payments across the world, across different senders, receivers, and of course the end customer. So very inspiring, so thank you very much for that. My question is very specific. I've worked with a couple of cross-border payment companies, especially in the pricing space. What's your plan for growth and expansion? Is it across specific corridors? Is it across specific, the M-Pesas of the world, mobile wallets? Is it across any specific segment? I mean, how do you look at growth as a company, and how do you collaborate essentially with your peers in this space, which, as you again beautifully put it, it's no longer a strife for expansion and market, cornering the market, so to speak, but it's a kind of collaborative approach. So how do you balance the two, and where do you see your growth happening?
Very nice question. Thank you. The growth it depends which corridors you want to grow into. So, of course, there are players that know the market more than others. So if you want to grow into India or Pakistan, you really need to understand that customer and partner with players on the other side. So why are they sending? Are they sending to buy a house? Are they sending to support family? What are the seasonalities? So really understanding what moves money across, and then build on that, making sure that you are there at the right time with the right messages, with the right product for the customer, having transparency and trust. So and then providing. Also partnering with different partners, as I said, like within the next 5 years, I really think there's going to be embedded finance. So be there where the customer is and not try to think that the customer will come to you on your application. So this is where growth is. So really going one step ahead, understanding where the consumer will be, how will they behave within the next 5 years, and where do I meet them, or where do I provide something that they didn't even think that they would need, right? So.
Thank you. Any further questions from the room? Another one at the front. This is going very well in terms of not in terms of my steps for the day, but you know what I mean.
Good morning. Thank you so much for sharing all that information. So I'm looking at for the point of view of the compliance and regulations. That's basically what I do. How do you see, I've been into a few of these, and everybody's so adamant about using AI when it comes to fraud prevention and all that. How do you see the connection between AI and actually protecting your customer with fraud? Are you still going to have, I know these systems alert you and everything, but are you still going to have that human element that it's going to start looking at these and try to pick up any, if we move to India, Asia, there's a lot of fraud out there.
Yeah.
So how would you, sort of link those two with the AI, the human element, and kind of like protect your customer?
Yeah. This is the topic right now. How do you really want to trust AI and analyses? Already with AI detection, we are having alerts, and we know when we have a fraud and KYC. So first, partnering with the right KYCs and AML companies. But also, I think this is my view. I think in the beginning you will still have humans detect and try to say yes or no, like to be there. You're not going to trust AI 100%. I've seen on the news recently that AI has done mistakes in different sectors. So making sure that we're still there, you need the human that will be on top of it. But also with AI, it will make your life easier. So it's kind of finding the balance. And then also, I think with AI, you're going to have more attacks and more attacks or securities, or have transfers that are not right. So kind of detecting those and being smarter and predictive with AI rather than just reactive. So I think building the predictability of, okay, I see this is not a good, this doesn't look right, flagging it, and being smarter about it. So you train your AI agent and you train them in order to be smarter and smarter.
Thank you very much. Any more questions from the room? Oh, we have another one there. Just a reminder to any of you who are joining us on the live stream, you can put your questions in the chat and I'll fit those into. Another question in the middle here.
Thank you. I know that you mentioned one of the upcoming trends is stablecoins, and that you also said that there are quite a disparity in digital inclusiveness. I just wondered from your perspective whether you had an opinion on whether the use of stablecoins will lead to more inclusivity or whether it's going to lead to further disparities.
I'm not an expert in stablecoins, I must say, but I do understand it as a new railways. So basically, I do believe in it. I think it depends in which communities. So Latin America, Africa, emerging markets will be using stablecoins because of the banking system. I'm half Lebanese, for instance, and I created an NGO before where I was helping communities get paid for jobs that they had because of the banking system that was broken, and one of them was stablecoins. So I know a lot about, how does this serve the end customers. The only thing is that I have a question mark is on regulations and how does it work there. So if you kind of have the right partners where in the regions, on the receiver side, so in the regional part, this is where you will win at stable coins and for customers to use it. So as I mentioned, the regions such as Latin America, emerging and all the emerging markets, they will be using stable coins and adopting it. I think that there's a lot of benefits for it in terms of like fees, being fast and so on. And I do see it growing. And I do see it as a growth lever that we need to pull into in terms of payments. But you need to know which partner and which corridor and so on. But there's a lot to dive into that as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Another question here, then another one in the centre.
Thanks. You talked there about the role that regulators have to play in the future trend of probably more regulations that adapts to this space. Thinking about local regulators and also in the different regions you've outlined there, what do the regulators need to do differently, or where do they need to be making changes in order to promote inclusivity and ensure that that trust does remain in the way that you're articulating it?
That's a hard question. I'm not a reg kind of, I'm going to wear my regulation and, security hat here. But again, I think what they need to ensure is making sure that with technology and with fraudulent payments, and that we can detect which one is predict which payment will be is a fraudulent one and which one is not. What do they need to do? I think working together and layering without friction, the security. So this is very important. I won't go into technicalities because that's not, I'm not a product person, but there are layers that can be put one on top of each other in order to have the best outcome. So again, it's about working together and not competition, because there are specific companies that do that and specific players that do that. So how do we work together in order to have the best security and to our customer? Whether it's SME, whether it's B2B with SMEs, or it's C2C.
Thank you. Another question here in the centre.
Thanks, Michelle, for your insights. One of the things that you mentioned, well, a couple of things: trust, efficiency, user experience. Data feels like it's one of the core factors in trying to enable that. I know the industry has been kind of increasing the data fields and the richness of the data through ISO, etc. How do you see the further use, or what are the challenges around how do we unlock data more to provide better enhancements, efficiencies? Because it feels like we're a bit stuck at the moment in terms of going to that next hurdle.
One question, like data, when you say data, it means customer data or also collecting data from, yeah. I just want to understand, like, where are you pointing at?
I think in my head, there's data that's associated to the transaction, like the actual payment itself. But then there's the wider ecosystem of data in terms of, like you said, why is this person making that payment? Is it a mortgage payment? Is it a remittance, etc.? And then how do we then bring in the wider network of data together, rather than having to just expand the payment data to be, X amount of gigabytes, just because we need all the context around that transaction?
Very good question. So it's how you use the data, right? There's so much data out there, and you want to make sure that you're using it with the right ways. So obviously, at the heart of it is leveraging the data that you get, whether it's qualitative data or quantitative data. So understanding that customer. In my experience and in my line of work, I look at data in terms of like segmentation. How much do they send? Why do they send it? What is the frequency? How much are they sending in terms of value? So understanding that corridor, but also understanding the behavior of that customer. So I use this data in order to have better targeting, in order to have better messages, in order to have better products for my customers. And then, so this is the data. And then from a regulation perspective, also understanding like how many attacks do we, or how many frauds do we have per day, how many are we saving? So trying to leverage that data. And there's a lot of articles out there, whether it's McKinsey or the World Bank, they are providing this data and trying to have like an open space for us to learn from each other. So I think, of course, data is at the heart of it. It's how you use it. It's how you have AI embedded within your automated system in order to alert you and to make the right decisions. So if my campaign is really working well and I'm targeting, and I'm getting that X amount of customer in terms of acquisition and I'm retaining, my AI agent in the automated tool within my company would tell me, okay, hey, you need to tap into that and that, leverage the data that you have from the signals that I'm getting.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much indeed for all of your questions. I have one last question, and that's about the human angle, Michelle. And I read a wonderful, wonderful quote online just a few days ago when I was prepping for this session, and it's this: behind every transfer is something far greater. Love, care, and connection. It's breaking barriers, fostering trust, empowering global families, and strengthening communities across borders. Do you know who wrote that?
No.
It was you.
Oh, yeah, I sent it to you. Yes, I did. I'm like, it sounds like me, but...
That was definitely you. It was a lovely quote indeed. But how important is it that we recognise that human aspect and never get overly distracted from the ultimate goal of serving that community and serving that customer?
Yes, I do believe it's a human behind all the technology. You got me. I do believe that human is behind the technology and we're serving communities. So if you think, if we're building infrastructure, if we're collecting data, if we're working with AI agents that shouldn't scare us because they will leverage what we actually need, we need to think about it from a human perspective and always have the human side. So why are they sending? Maybe it's a need, maybe it's to make someone happy, maybe it's to solve a problem. So somebody that SMEs, maybe from a B2B perspective. So if you have that in the back of your mind while building your why, so your why is humans, then you will stay on the right path, I think.
I have to say that was deeply unfair of me. I completely put you on the spot with that one. But it is a lovely quote anyway. Well, that is all the time we have for this session. Up next, we have the FinTech Strategies panel. But for now, everyone, a round of applause for Michelle, please.
Thank you.